Orbiting elsewhere. When happiness is a public nuisance. Preface. They told me, when I was small and full of sofa cushion optimism, that families were like planets, bound by gravity, occasionally erupting in inconvenient weather, and sometimes inhabited by creatures who insisted the orbit existed solely to highlight their sun-like importance. I believed them. I also believed that my family, who were excellent at being rude in a way that sounded like helpful advice, were simply mean, in an efficient, old-fashioned way. It took me until I was 32, a little wiser and considerably fonder of insulating earplugs, to learn the proper taxonomy, not mean, as in accidentally stepped on empathy once in 1996. But narcissistic. An entire ecological niche of humans whose principal survival technique was to redirect the world's narrative until it became an autograph on their forehead. Chapter 1. You would think there would be warning labels. There were not, only small catalogues of tiny, alarming rituals. Example A. Gift economics. In any functioning economy, gifts are units of affection or neutrality. To the narcissistic, gifts are Trojan horses with invoices. My mother once gave me a teapot. Ceramic, blue, improbably wholesome looking, with a lid like a tiny, smug nebula. I waved my PollyAnna hand and said, "It's perfect." Because that is what polite, optimistically trained organisms do. 3 days later, she called to ask, conversationally, if I would drive her to a dentist, who lived in a different time zone. It was the teapot subtle terms. A teapot has been issued to you. Collateral required. By the time I refused, with the brittle courage of someone who had read the instructions in the back of several self-help pamphlets, the teapot had been micro-invoiced for emotional labor, mileage, and a lecture on familial duty that arrived with the force and duration of an old sitcom's laugh track. Example B. The rebate of compliments. Compliments, in their natural state, are graceful. In my family, they were like coupons that could only be redeemed for self-esteem. "You look great," my mother would exclaim, as if observing a comet. Then add, "It's such a shame about your hair though, what happened?" The compliment folds politely into a correction. Praise is the appetizer before the main course of diminishing you, so they may dine on the moral high ground. I began calling this process upgrading the wannabe. It was efficient. They saved on therapy by outsourcing all glow to themselves. The most peculiar observation. When I refused. Chapter 2. The refusal. Refusal is, in normal human commerce, a small transaction. One says no, the other registers it, both proceed. In my family, no had the gravitational effect of a small star collapsing into a theatrical supernova. Refuse to pick up a casserole at 4 p.m.? Be prepared for a meltdown that rewrites the family history retroactively to insist you had always been unhelpful, unfeeling, and allergic to casserole since birth. Refusing a favor was not a blunt instrument. It was a sacrilege that implied the universe had stopped revolving around the correct star. When I said no politely, they did not merely disagree, they became personally affronted. As though I had denied them a performance of moral superiority they'd auditioned for all week. And yet they could, with catastrophic timing, call me PollyAnna, like an accusation and an epithet combined. PollyAnna, they would sneer as if naming me were the last weapon they owned. I eventually discovered it was shorthand for, "Stop being genuinely cheerful, it ruins my agenda." The irony was delicious. Insulted because I enjoyed sunlight. Apparently, my joy was a misdemeanor against their narrative. You may think rage has to be proportionate. It does not. My happiness is, apparently, a public nuisance. If I smiled too loudly at a family dinner, someone would invent an imminent crisis. An unpaid parking ticket in a country we had never visited. A distant cousin's hypothetical fainting. To justify turning the conversation into an opera of blame. If happiness were a radio station, they tuned to static and demanded I listen to the static's distress signal. Worst of all, cruelty came disguised as concern. I only criticize because I care, they explained, in the tone of a volcano describing its pastoral interests. Criticism is marketed as caregiving, like a dentist who insists on drilling by reciting poetry about molars. Of course, I noticed your weight, they would say with the loving cadence of a cop filling out a citation. The same voice that could deliver a withering remark about my life choices would, minutes later, demand gratitude for having the courage to be honest. Honesty, it turned out, was a kind of emotional landscaping they practiced on me with a weed whacker, then insisted I thank them for removing the weeds of my happiness. Chapter 3. Inventing rules on the fly and training by guilt. Now there were moments of genuine competence. My family was spectacular at inventing rules on the fly and training by guilt. For instance, every birthday present was an audition. They gave gifts, yes, but the unspoken clause said, "Gift, you owe me a public, emotional repayment," plus a thank you note that adds context about how my life would be hollow without them. You thank them for the gift, sure, but you must also thank them for their parenting, their past sacrifices, their currently worn shoes. Things that had nothing to do with the gift's existence. The thank you note must be a thesis. One year I tried a radical experiment. I accepted a present and then wrote a thank you note that was unnervingly brief. Thanks for the used pillowcase. That's it. No performance, no gratitude acrobatics. The pillowcase's provenance is now a family myth. Some say my mother's eyebrows performed a slow arc of disappointment that could be seen from space. She demanded an explanation as though I had committed a ceremonial crime. I explained, succinctly, that people are allowed to be pleased without composing a soliloquy. She raged, as if happiness required her permission. I realized, finally, that this pattern was not mine to fix. You can't reform a habit that tastes like identity to someone else. Narcissism doesn't hear your boundaries. It hears a challenge to its right to be the narrative's protagonist. So, I redesigned my approach. Step 1. Shrink the theater. Gifts arrive. I accept them with a polite, non-committal smile and store them. If the gift later transmogrifies into a ransom note for favors, I apply the return to sender principle. The teapot goes into a box marked giveaway and eventually to a thrift shop where someone buys it for its own reasons. They do not get to attach moral accounting to my acts of domestic charity. Step 2. Do not compete on the spectacle axis. If happiness triggers a flare-up, I do not dim my smile. I leave the room. Narcissists crave audiences. Remove the audience and they must perform solo, which they will do, dramatically, but without the satisfaction of an engaged crowd. It's like watching someone rehearse fireworks alone in a shed, noisy, but less effective without applause. Step 3. Answer the demand for repayment with literal receipts. When they complain about favors not returned, I mail them a printed invoice, mock letterhead, gentle font. Listing services rendered such as listening to political rants, 3 hours. It confuses them into silence, which is deliciously efficient. And yet, in the strangest of ways, Their arrogance taught me to be cheerful as a defensive strategy. I kept my PollyAnna cap, but now it's tactical and more fashionable, not naive. Smiles no longer dissolve me. They are a shield. When they call me that nickname, I grin and with the smallest coldness, reply, yes, it's working. This irritates them, which is a useful side effect. After all, if they are enraged by my happiness, it means my life, for a fraction of a day, is not about them. That in itself is a small cosmic victory. Chapter 4. There are, of course, relapses. There are, of course, relapses. Sometimes I miss the old, complicated interactions because they were familiar, like bad coffee, bitter but warm. Once, at a family gathering, I watched them stage a melodrama over a missing Christmas ornament, and for a moment I felt the odd, guilty nostalgia of someone missing their childhood dentist. But then I remembered something important. The omniverse is vast, and narcissists are mostly revolving around their own suns. I am allowed to orbit elsewhere. So, I sorted my life into boxes. Those I will explain myself to, a shrinking list. Those I will set boundaries with, a polite, firm envelope. And those I will disengage from, donate to thrift shop policy. The teapot may or may not end up holding pencils. The receipt will always be the perfect size for the drawer of small grievances. In the end, learning you're born into a narcissistic family feels a bit like discovering the planet you live on is eloquent and terrible. The weather might be unfair, the sky's filled with dramatic pronouncements, but you can always, mercifully, book a ticket off the emotional tour bus, go to a quieter cafe on the other side of town, and sip a beverage that is yours alone. They still call me PollyAnna sometimes, as an accusation, an observation, and, oddly, a secret compliment. I hear the word and think, good. If cheerfulness annoys someone who wants to be the sun, then my small lamp is perhaps doing exactly the right thing. And really, if your family gets angry when you're happy, consider it evidence you have more than enough internal brightness to go around. Pack it in a cardboard box if you must. But don't feel obligated to make the trip off planet.